everyone. So just because we often get asked the question, how are we different from the New York Historical Society? I had not planned to go into that, but following right after Henry, we are only a museum. We do not have a library. Our manuscripts and ephemera collections and our rare books exist as part of the museum's entire collection. So with that in mind, we collect with the intent to exhibit our materials. That being said, we make our collections available for research. It is by appointment only, and at the end of the presentation I have some contact information about how you would set up an appointment, but we don't have a reading room that's open for walk-in, and it's generally the curator or archivist of that particular collection who is the person who helps you when you set up a research appointment. We don't have dedicated research room staff. We collect exclusively for New York City. We also, when we were founded, had more of a loose interpretation of our mission, but it always has been dedicated to New York City history. It's not to say there aren't some things related to New York State in there, but that is an exception, and we really do focus on the city. So I'm going to give you just sort of an overview of our ephemera collections and tell you about what we've done to make them more accessible. To begin with, I will let you know the state they were in when I started with the museum as the manuscripts and ephemera archivist a little over 5 years ago. We had about 50 artificial collections. These have been assembled by museum staff over the years from various donations. They were arranged subjectively according to, I would say, the interpretation of the person managing the collection at the time. It's arranged thematically by subjects, so things like weddings or bridges, parades, civic events, and then also by object type. So we had like a collection of ephemera textiles or a collection of trade cards, collections of menus, regardless of what sort of event it was for. And these were accessed through a box list, or to be more clear, 3 photocopies of handwritten box lists, all the different numbers, and a map. And so in order to access it, I was constantly cross-referencing everything. And then there were no finding aids for these collections whatsoever, and there were very few individual collection, object level records in our collections management system. And what was there had very minimal and often unverified information. So while I was hired and I could do certain things, like typing up our box list and combining them into one, we realized that the project was quite a bit bigger than could be handled by one person, because I was also overseeing the reference aspect and manuscripts and books and maps. And so we applied to the NEH in 2013 for a project to improve access to the ephemera collections, namely through processing and rearrangement, rehousing, creation of collection level finding aids, object level cataloging, and digitization. So now to sort of fast forward to where we are now, as we don't have a library function, we don't have a lot of the tools for making our archival finding aids accessible the way you find at a research institution or at a university library. So we built a catalog, which is basically a tool for managing our archival finding aids using blog software. It's super easy. I can manage it without any support from my IT department, and it's very cheap, which everyone liked. So we went about writing archival finding aids. As you can see here, this is our general about page. Moving ahead, this is the alphabetical listing. This is not just our ephemera collections listed here, also manuscript collections, amphitheater, and the limited institutional records we have made available to the public. On the left-hand side of the screen, we have categories, so you'll see there is one just for ephemera, so if you click on that, it will take you directly to all the finding aids for the ephemera collection. And on the right-hand side, we have some of the subject tabs we've assigned. You can also search this. It does not search every single word in the finding aid, but it searches all the subjects that have been assigned to the finding aid through the blog software. So once you click on the collection, it will take you to the landing page for that. So this is the collection on infrastructure. One of the things I should mention as part of the restructuring, we looked at these 50 individual ephemera collections and looked for ways to restructure them in a hierarchical manner the way a regular archival collection is. So things that were similar, for instance, bridges and transportation and parks all became part of the collection on infrastructure, so that when we had researchers come in, we were no longer pulling a box from here and a box from here and a box from here, but we were actually able to pull related materials and have a tool for navigating it as a united collection. Again, this was based on the fact that our collections were artificial anyways and created by museum staff. It wasn't like we had a collector who donated their entire body of ephemera to us. So the museum had more leeway in how we could make these collections accessible than if it had been donated to us as an entire unified body. So here is basically just a brief overview. We've got the extent, very, very condensed version of the scope and content note. We go into a historical note. You will see the series and sub-series structure. So this is essentially 4 or 5 different single collections that were again condensed into one. And then down at the bottom, if you feel that this collection is of greater interest to you, you can click on the link to open the full finding aid as a PDF where you've got series and sub-series descriptions, you've got container lists, you have, all sorts of subject terms assigned. So once you've determined it's of interest, you can get the full finding aid this way. Additionally, we've been digitizing the collection. We are about a third of the way through. This is the homepage of our collections portal. As you can see, the ephemera is a featured collection on there that scrolls through the banner image. You can search. There's a basic search box up at the top. There's also an advanced search I'll get to momentarily. But if you just want to browse the ephemera collections, you can click on that icon in the homepage, and it will take you into all of the ephemera we've digitized thus far. Right now we have about 72 pages, which comes to roughly just under 5,000 items, and we have more to go. Once you click on one of these records, it will open up the full record view for you. So you see you've got the primary image. This is a multi-page record, so we've got the interior of the menu there to the right. You can click on that and also open it up as a large image. We've got tombstone information with the accession number, the printer, the description, the date, and the dimensions. And then down in the bottom right, you'll see the keywords. So those are all hyperlinked, so this provides another avenue for you to explore our collection. The font is a little small, but in there are things like Pilgrims of the United States, so if you wanted to see all events that were held by the Pilgrims of the United States, all events held at the Plaza Hotel, and it would bring everything from the whole collection. So not just the ephemera, but you might get photographs of this event happening. And then you'll see at the bottom left, just below the image, a magnifying glass icon, which opens up our zoom feature. You can enlarge the image up to 200%, which is really helpful when you're trying to read the fine print in a lot of ephemera. Zoom in on a printer's name. This is our advanced search screen, so if you wanted to just narrow the scope of your search to ephemera, you could do so by the object type. You can also limit it by date. You can include subject terms like organizations that you are interested in. This is another view for multi-page objects that will allow you to see all of the pages together rather than having to scroll through one at a time. And then another tool that we use for making the ephemera collection available to the public is through our collections blog. So this is where you might find more in-depth information about the donors or how we're actually processing the collection as we go through it. We share it through the blog. A lot of times things that haven't been digitized yet, we will go ahead and put up there so that people know about them. They know we're actively working on the collection, so if they have questions, they can reach out to us. It's also searchable, and there's a category for manuscripts and ephemera in our collections blog too, so you can just focus on those posts. And then I've just picked some representative examples from our collection. To the left, we've got a very large collection of menus from the Lotus Club, and these are really big menus that have very detailed illustrations. This one's for Andrew Carnegie. I actually just did a blog post on these and the level of illustration in them. To the right, we have got a handkerchief from the Brighton Beach Hotel. This was one of the materials that was just in the ephemera textiles box, and that's all we knew is that it was textile material. We have a huge collection of menus. These are both for things like restaurants and hotels, as well as for specific events. So the one to the left is for the annual dinner of the Railway Business Association. To the right, we have got a souvenir of the Civic and Industrial Parade. We have a lot of material related to civic events, so things like Hudson Fulton or the opening of the Erie Canal. We have private script, so this money here to the left was created for Crook's Hotel and Saloon. We have a number of other things created by different businesses. To the right, we have got a program for the New Year's Eve celebration at the Colonnades at the Essex House Hotel. I like that image a lot. People having a lot of fun. And then we've got a huge collection of Prohibition material. So we've got speakeasy membership cards and bootleggers price lists. So we've got material from the Stork Club up on the left. Down on the bottom right is a guide to museums in New York City in 1939, most likely produced in anticipation of the New York World's Fair. So you can have a little walking tour of cultural institutions in 1939. And then here are all of the links and the contact information if you're interested in accessing our collection. So the museum website is up at the top, our catalog is below it, then the collections portal, the collections blog, and then the email address for making appointments is research@mcny.org. And because we just have one person who manages that right now, we always recommend that people reach out a couple of weeks in advance, especially if you want to have an on-site appointment, because she's juggling it with all of her other responsibilities. And then finally, I just want to acknowledge the support of the NEH, who has really allowed us to turn the collection around. So not only do we think our collections are essential for research, clearly the federal government does